Al-Qaeda did not begin as a terrorist organization planning global attacks. It began as an idea shaped by war, humiliation, and belief. To understand how it changed the world, you must go back before the planes, before the towers, before the name became feared. You must go back to a time when the Cold War was still alive, and Afghanistan became the battlefield where global powers played with fire. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. It was meant to be a quick intervention. Instead, it turned into a decade-long disaster. Afghan villages were bombed into dust. Millions fled their homes. Refugee camps filled Pakistan. A generation grew up surrounded by loss, anger, and stories of occupation. This war did not just destroy a country, it radicalized a movement. The United States saw opportunity. The enemy of its enemy became its ally. Money, weapons, and training poured into the Afghan resistance. Pakistan became the logistical backbone. Saudi Arabia became the financial engine. Religion became the glue. Fighters were told they were not just defending land, they were defending Islam itself. From across the Muslim world, young men arrived. Arabs from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Yemen, and beyond. They were not Afghans, but they believed this war was theirs. Among them was a quiet, wealthy Saudi named Osama bin Laden. He was not a commander at first, he was a facilitator. He funded camps, built roads, supplied fighters. He believed deeply that jihad was a personal duty. These fighters called themselves the Afghan Arabs. They lived, trained, and fought together. Bonds were formed in blood and belief. They saw the Soviet Union retreat in humiliation. Tanks left, flags came down. To them, this was proof that faith could defeat a superpower. This lesson would change everything. When the war ended, the fighters did not go home peacefully. They returned to countries ruled by authoritarian regimes. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Syria. Governments that feared them, arrested them, suppressed them. The fighters felt betrayed. They had defeated an empire, yet had no place in the world they returned to. Out of this frustration, a new idea formed. The enemy was no longer just occupying armies. The enemy was the system that supported them, the regimes, the superpowers, the global order itself. This idea needed structure. It needed leadership. It needed organization. In 1988, Al-Qaeda was formed. The name meant the base. It was not a mass army, it was a network, a hub connecting fighters, money, ideology, and operations. Osama bin Laden believed jihad should be global, not reactive, not local, strategic, coordinated, permanent. Al-Qaeda's early goal was not attacks on civilians in the West, it was to overthrow regimes in the Muslim world. Egypt was the priority, Saudi Arabia was the prize. But reality interfered. These regimes were stronger than expected. Intelligence services crushed cells, leaders were imprisoned or killed. Then came 1990. Iraq invaded Kuwait. U.S. troops were deployed to Saudi Arabia. For bin Laden, this was betrayal beyond forgiveness. Foreign soldiers on the land of Islam's holiest sites. He offered to defend the kingdom himself. The Saudi leadership refused. They chose America. This moment radicalized bin Laden completely. His enemy shifted. The United States was no longer distant, it was central. He believed America propped up corrupt regimes. He believed removing America would collapse the system underneath. Al-Qaeda moved its base, Sudan, then Afghanistan again. In Afghanistan, under the protection of the Taliban, Al-Qaeda found freedom. Camps reopened, training expanded, fighters flowed in, planning began. The first attacks were warnings. Embassies in Africa were bombed. Hundreds died. The message was clear. Al-Qaeda was at war with America. The response was limited. Missiles were fired, camps were hit, but the organization survived. Al-Qaeda learned another lesson. Spectacular violence forced attention. Fear multiplied influence. Media became a weapon. They were not just fighting armies, they were fighting psychology. Inside Al-Qaeda, hierarchy mattered. Loyalty was sacred, obedience absolute. Recruits were tested, indoctrinated, prepared for death. This was not chaos, this was disciplined extremism. Osama bin Laden was not a battlefield general. He was a symbol, a financier, a motivator. Strategic planning came from others. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed brought the idea that would change history: use airplanes, turn civilian infrastructure into weapons, strike symbols, not soldiers. The plan took years, training pilots, moving money, maintaining secrecy, exploiting open societies. Every weakness became opportunity. Every assumption became a weapon. On September 11, 2001, Al-Qaeda succeeded beyond imagination. 4 planes, thousands dead. The world froze. Television screens burned the image into history. In minutes, Al-Qaeda transformed from a regional extremist network into the most powerful terrorist symbol on Earth. The United States declared war, not on a country, on a concept. The war on terror began. Afghanistan was invaded. Al-Qaeda camps were destroyed. Leaders fled. Bin Laden disappeared. But Al-Qaeda did not die. It evolved. The invasion proved Al-Qaeda's narrative: the West at war with Islam. Civilian deaths multiplied, prisons filled, torture stories spread, recruitment surged. What Al-Qaeda could never achieve alone was now happening through reaction. Franchises emerged: Al-Qaeda in Iraq, in the Arabian Peninsula, in North Africa. The brand spread faster than control. Central leadership weakened, but ideology expanded. Al-Qaeda did not need governed territory. It needed chaos. It needed anger. It needed resentment. Its power was never tanks or cities. It was influence. Even as leaders were killed, the idea lived. Lone actors, small cells, inspired attacks. The model shifted. Decentralization became survival. Al-Qaeda changed warfare. Borders became irrelevant. Civilians became targets. Media became a battlefield. Security became global. Airports, surveillance, wars that never ended. The world responded with force: invasions, drones, special forces, billions spent. Some threats were eliminated, others multiplied. Al-Qaeda faded from the headlines, replaced by ISIS. But make no mistake, ISIS was born from Al-Qaeda's shadow, its methods, its brutality, its global ambition. Al-Qaeda's greatest impact was not destruction alone. It reshaped global politics, justified wars, expanded surveillance, redefined security, changed how nations interact. One organization, a few thousand fighters, and the world was never the same again. And the most dangerous part was this: Al-Qaeda proved that asymmetrical power could bend superpowers into endless conflict. And that lesson will never be forgotten. After September 11th, the world did not slow down. It accelerated into fear. Governments rewrote laws overnight. Airports turned into checkpoints of suspicion. Surveillance expanded quietly, then openly. Entire regions were redefined as threats. Al-Qaeda had not just killed thousands, it had changed how power reacted to insecurity. In Afghanistan, bombs fell again. The Taliban collapsed quickly, just as they had years earlier. Al-Qaeda's camps were destroyed, fighters scattered into mountains, villages, and across borders. Many believed this was the end. It was not. Al-Qaeda had never relied on territory the way states did. Its strength was dispersion, secrecy, and belief. Osama bin Laden became a ghost. His voice appeared on tapes, grainy and defiant. Each message reminded followers that survival itself was victory. The longer he remained free, the stronger the myth grew. For supporters, he was proof that faith could evade the most powerful military on earth. Inside Al-Qaeda, adaptation became law. Large training camps were liabilities now. Communication shifted. Cells became smaller. Planning became decentralized. Autonomy replaced hierarchy. Local commanders were given freedom to act as long as they followed ideology. This reduced control, but increased resilience. The war on terror expanded beyond Afghanistan. Iraq was invaded. The justification was different, but the consequences were familiar. State collapse, power vacuums, sectarian conflict. For Al-Qaeda, Iraq became opportunity. What they could not achieve alone, chaos delivered freely. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi emerged in Iraq with a brutality even Al-Qaeda leadership feared. He understood that sectarian war could shatter societies faster than conventional attacks. Bombing mosques, provoking retaliation, forcing communities to choose sides. Iraq burned, and from those ashes, new forms of extremism grew. Al-Qaeda Central struggled with control. Zarqawi's methods alienated many, but they also produced results: attention, recruitment, fear. This tension between ideology and strategy would later fracture the movement itself. Meanwhile, in Europe and beyond, Al-Qaeda's influence manifested differently. Attacks in Madrid, London, Bali. These were not centrally planned in every detail. They were inspired, guided, enabled. The organization had become a brand, one that others could act in the name of even without direct orders. Governments responded with force, but also with mistakes: indefinite detention, torture, civilian casualties. Every abuse confirmed Al-Qaeda's narrative for those already angry. Extremism fed on reaction. The more aggressive the response, the easier recruitment became in certain communities. Osama bin Laden understood symbolism better than anyone. He did not need to win battles. He needed to provoke overreach, exhaustion, division. And slowly, that is what happened. Wars dragged on. Public support eroded. Trillions were spent. Stability remained distant. Inside the Muslim world, Al-Qaeda's message resonated unevenly. Many rejected its violence. Others saw it as the only force confronting global injustice. This ambiguity was enough. Total support was never necessary. Passive sympathy and silence were sufficient for survival. As years passed, Al-Qaeda's leadership aged. Communications became harder. Intelligence pressure intensified. Drones hunted relentlessly. One by one, senior figures were killed. Yet the organization adapted again. Leadership loss no longer meant collapse. It meant mutation. The Arab Spring briefly challenged Al-Qaeda's relevance. Popular movements toppled regimes without global jihad. For a moment, Al-Qaeda looked outdated. But instability returned. Revolutions failed. Civil wars erupted. Extremism found new ground. Then Osama bin Laden was killed. For the world, it was closure. For Al-Qaeda, it was transition. The myth became martyrdom. The symbol became eternal. Leadership passed quietly. The organization receded from headlines, but not from influence. ISIS would later eclipse Al-Qaeda in brutality and spectacle, but it followed the same path: war, chaos, identity, fear. Even as rivals, both were products of the same lineage. Al-Qaeda had written the blueprint. Today, Al-Qaeda is quieter, but not gone. It waits, it adapts, it embeds itself in local conflicts rather than global spectacle. Its patience remains its weapon. Its legacy remains its greatest achievement. Al-Qaeda changed the world not because it was strong, but because the world responded exactly as it hoped: with fear, with force, with endless war. And that is why its story is not over.